This is the Midway Business Podcast. Inspired by the turning point of the Battle of Midway, Butch Zemar, CEO of Elite Benefits of America, is on a mission to help small and mid-sized businesses win their own battles. And now, Butch Zemar.
Well, welcome back to the show. I have Virginia McGann with me. We're going to have a special interview to talk about what small and mid-sized companies go through and their challenges. And thank you for coming on. I think you were on once before, and it's definitely great to have you back.
Thanks a lot, Butch.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've known each other for a number of years. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and catch up. Even though we're in two different cities, but we mingle with a lot of the same business owners or similar nature, and it's really good to catch up with you. And we were catching up before this recording. But Virginia, for the audience, can you just give a little background on who you are, what you do, and your company, and we can at least start from there.
Sure. My name is Virginia McGann. Our firm is Integrated Back Office Solutions. We work primarily with professional services firms and to do all their back office work, their accounting, their bookkeeping, financial reporting, planning. And the reason I got into this was I come from a family of police and lawyers. So we really didn't know much about businesses, small business. And I just assumed small businesses know everything they need to know about the business of running what they do well. And my mentor made me go to graduate school because I was an English and Spanish major. He said, you got to go to graduate school. You got to learn something that you're going to be able to live on. And so I begrudgingly went and got a master's in business. And it was the capstone course, Butch, that I thought, oh my, everything came together. And it was like, boom, 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 this is so cool. And I thought, so all these business owners know all this stuff? I never had an idea. No, they don't. They're really, really good at doing what they know best. The backside of it can be a little iffy. So that really became our niche, to help professional services firms understand what their numbers are saying, where are their strengths, where are their weaknesses. And so typically a company will either find us or be referred to us saying, I'm looking at my numbers in QuickBooks and they don't make any sense. My bank balance is negative 75,000, blah, blah, blah. But we know that can't be true because the bank would have shut them down. So what happens is a lot of small businesses will start up. They'll do their own books for a while because, hell, there was a Super Bowl commercial a couple of years ago, probably 10 years ago now, right? When they introduced QuickBooks Online. You can do your books with a beer in one hand and a taco in the other. This is simple. Just buy QuickBooks Online. Well, a lot of people fell for that. It's not that simple. So we get a lot of that work. We come in, we do a cleanup. We find out, first we meet with the with the business owner, find out what they think is the problem. And let's remember, sometimes what we think is the problem is really a symptom of what the real problem is. So we help them go over their books. Let's see what's wrong, what doesn't look right. We fix up the books, and then we get a regular process put together, and we move forward to make sure that they have always good numbers they understand, and numbers they can plan with.
So we're obviously 5 years past COVID. There was a lot of business impact during COVID, and but what are you seeing? We're recording this in 2025. When it relates to where you're at and working with these businesses, what are you seeing? Some of the things that maybe businesses are missing, or maybe personalities have changed, even whether it was since COVID or the last 20 years that you've been involved in some of the stuff. What have you seen change, and what should business owners be looking for?
Well, like any business, I think there are going to be ups and downs, right? So right now, there's just a general feeling of uncertainty. So companies tend to go inward, almost like turtles, right? Wrong thing to do. They cut back on marketing. They cut back on professional services. Whenever you can, keep your marketing, because now's the time when everybody else is getting smaller and less adventurous, let's say. Now's the time to put money in that marketing and pull ahead of them. I understand the need to be cautious, and yes, please do, because we don't know what's going to happen. I think what's going on now, with the tax bill and tariffs and everything is going to hit the general public soon. So we don't know exactly what those repercussions will be. But don't cut back on stuff that will keep your firm moving forward. Remember, when there's a storm, you can't stop and let it push you away. You got to push through it.
And obviously that goes with a lot of number crunching, right? You're planning for the worst all the time, right? So how many businesses out there prepare for a nest egg for a situation? Because obviously, if you go back 12 months ago, we would have never predicted, even like some businesses be impacted by tariffs. But how did business plan for this? And like, have you seen a lot of businesses starting to plan for things like this, or are they still negligent because they're so busy on what their day-to-days are?
I'd say it's the latter, actually. Very few businesses, by the way, nationally have a nest egg. Those are usually the much bigger firms, well-funded firms. When you're, business owner, if you're privately held, and small businesses, you don't have enough in the till to get you through 6 months. No way, maybe 3. I think this is the uncertainty is making people very cautious, and some people were overextended. Right during COVID, there was a lot of public money coming out to support small businesses. The SBA loans, those EIDL loans, were pretty much you could get if you asked, you got. And so a lot of people are overextended on that. Their debt to equity ratios are way out of whack, and they're going to pay for that because they're using a lot of their cash flow just for debt service. Well, that doesn't do anything for your company.
Sure.
So very few are prepared for this. But again, it's and not many of my clients anyway. We go up to about $5 million in revenue. Not many of my clients have a pathway through. Again, though, it's not. I wouldn't put that on them. We don't know nationally. There's an anxiety nationally. We don't know what's happening.
And I'll tie this to the bookkeeping. Like, is there a certain recommendation for these small, mid-sized companies of how many months reserves should they really have to kind of stomach some of these ebb and flows?
It's no different from your personal. Actually, if most people would say have at least 6 months. If you lose your job, right, you have a cushion for 6 months. That's not really possible for some of these firms. So, try and start looking at two-month increments and put that aside and don't touch it. Don't dip into it for any kind of special promotion or anything. Just leave it there if you can.
And so obviously that goes back to good bookkeeping, right? And so from your experience, I know you go to a lot of networking events and then you gain clients that way. Like, are businesses still not tracking expenses very well so they can keep track of their cash flow better?
They may be keeping track of their expenses. Here's the difference. If you were to say, on your P&L, sure, we know what you're spending on what, right? But how does that translate into giving you what your margins are on your different lines? Let's take your company for example. What is your margin on personal lines? What's your margin on cybersecurity lines? A lot of business owners don't know that. They don't have the people, if they're doing it in-house, they don't have the people in the right seats to be able to figure that out for them. If they're going outside, they may use foreign work that just does the data entry. There's no interpretation there. What I would suggest is talk with your CPA, go to these networking places, find out who can really tell you the nuts and bolts of your company. It's not just what are your expenses, what's your revenue. How does that translate into the financial standing, fiscal management of your firm?
So, and I have heard this over and over the years, right? And there's a lot of businesses, even the ones I've talked to, where they focus a lot of attention, at least, on all their expenses. How do we keep cutting? How do we keep cutting, right? And that's one piece of it, right? But you already alluded to, like, during current times, put it in marketing and keep growing. And so, do you find that there's a lot more success in the companies that actually turn that focus and say, okay, I'm going to spend 5% of my time analyzing this on my expenses, but I'm going to spend 95% of the time trying to figure out how to generate more revenue?
Oh, without a doubt. There's no question. And the firms that do not turn their back on marketing or getting out there, meeting people, even on the phone, grab a cup of coffee, they're the ones who are going to get through this.
I know part of all the things that you're doing that you're. I know we didn't really talk about this before we jumped on the call, but you were starting to add other services to some of your clients, right? And so to offer some more protection. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Because obviously you're trying to be the back office for your clients, and you're trying to support them in better ways. And so, can you give us a little background on how you're supporting the businesses in other ways?
To that end, the first thing we're doing is we created the Sleep Tight package. So for small businesses, growing businesses, there are usually two things that they worry about: cash flow and IT. So we've partnered with a IT company called 5 Point Solutions here in Illinois, and we offer this Sleep Tight package. So we do 2 independent assessments. We'll look at your bookkeeping and your processes for AP, AR, all the back office finances. They look independently at your IT structure. We can come up either with separate plans or a combined plan so that you have one-stop shopping for your IT and your accounting. So it's just one less thing you have to click or to put on your checklist. And we've got a lot of interest in that because people, especially small business owners, who are running as fast as they possibly can, if they don't have to worry about those separately, bring it together and make sense. Remember, all your operations in your back office should integrate seamlessly. And that's why we brought in the IT element as well. The second thing we're doing is we are helping firms. We invested in some software that will help benchmark firms, how their financials, how they are doing against firms in their district, or rather in their region, nationally, by industry, by NAICS code. And so it can help, they see the benchmarking, they see where they are. It is a non-subjective review of how they're doing. And then we can develop some KPIs that make sense for them. KPIs it's like a rash, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to put a KPI on things, not necessarily, don't overdo it. Mm-hmm. But certainly we can come up with 5 elements of your business that we want to monitor, and we can do that in real time for you.
And that's awesome. You're just giving more and more back office support for these business owners so they can focus on what they do best, right? Because that's what they got in business for, right? And it goes with a lot of professional backgrounds, right? So you go to school for all these years, become a doctor, attorney, or even just an entrepreneur, right? Like they don't teach you a whole lot of business if you're getting into business, right? It's a completely different animal. Can you give maybe a couple helpful tips as far as what small companies or mid-sized companies should be looking at as we progress further in 2025, going into 2026, on some of the maybe different strategies, or you don't have to give away the farm, but like some things that business owners should be starting to think about if they're not thinking about it already.
Sure. First thing is, especially now, the reason the debate is so hot now about the budgeting in Washington is we're looking at debt to equity ratios. Mm-hmm. Essentially, as a country, we should be doing that as a small businesses as well. If you are over leveraged, if you've got a lot of, you're working on credit cards, which a lot of companies do, you've got some lines of credit, you've got loans out with the SBA, take a look at those and start to realize, how am I going to start to pay this down? What could be an aggressive debt service payment plan? That would be number one, because that's going to kill most businesses, that over indebtedness. Mm-hmm. Secondly, do try and figure out your margins. If you need some help, get some help to figure out your margins. When people are going to try and cut overhead, don't cut on the lines of business that bring you the most money. Again, the margins. So I work with a construction company, and they do maintenance. They cut lawns and everything. Then they do construction. And when we first met, I said, okay, where do you get most of your money from? Most of your profit? Don't know. They never actually measured the cost of labor against each of these jobs. Some of the bigger construction jobs they have to do with union labor, but they weren't figuring that into the cost of producing that product. So if you need to shave somewhere, you're getting a little nervous, start looking at your margins, figure out your lowest budget, your lowest margin elements, and try and move away from them. concentrate. It's the 80-20 rule. We were talking about that earlier, Butch. Concentrate on what is bringing in the most revenue for you and walk away from the other stuff it's just not going to help you get to where you need to be.
When you walk businesses through that process, do you find that there is this emotional attachment to the lower margin items?
Yes, because that's how they started.
Yeah.
Right?
Very much so.
As I am adding services, you're building your business. Like they got me my first office, or my first computer, right?
Yes.
But now I'm actually probably losing money on it because I used to do that work by myself.
Yeah.
Now I've grown and I've got staff. So I'm losing money on that. So yes, it's very emotional. But even more so than that, I get people will say, "You're kidding. I never knew that." Like, hey, Butch, you probably should take a look at this because it's a drag on you. You're kidding me. I never knew that. Or did you know by adding XYZ at a cost of 2, your revenue will go up 4? I never knew that. Well, because they don't have time. They're so busy working. But that's what firms like mine and yours do.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to shed light on it, just to share, not to take the spotlight away from you, but just to share on what's happened a little bit in our industry where some of the margins on the smaller stuff or personal lines, if you want to call it, but we're in the health insurance world, so it's a little bit different, but the models have changed, right? And they've even just changed recently. We're actually making less on a lot of those products. And so during the last decade or so since the Affordable Care Act, we moved a little bit more towards just doing a referral base instead of actively pursuing that business. So like if Virginia says, "Hey, I got this dear friend of mine or business client, whatever it is," and say, "Hey, Butch, can you take care of them?" Yeah, absolutely. We'll take care of it, right? But if somebody calls us out of the whim and there's no connections, we usually don't help them out with that. But on top of that, some people will say, especially when it gets to the topic of commission, sometimes we have to tell them, and sometimes we don't have to, but it comes up in conversation, and I have nothing to hide, so I tell them, and they're like, "Really? And you're still going to do this?" Look, and my thing is, just be my friend. Don't waste my time. We'll get through this together, and we'll just smile. And if you have a problem, call me. And just don't waste time, and we'll be fine. And I would say there's a ton of clients. They respect my time. They call. They get the question in. And I would say in a 10-minute phone call, 8 minutes is just catching up on personal items that we've discussed before, and then 2 minutes was all business, right? So I always tell people just don't waste time. And it's the same thing with any business practice, even yours or anybody else's, right? Just teach your clients to be a little bit respectful on the lower items. Otherwise, you just may have to ask them to find another place to go. And you're right. I mean, that's how a lot of businesses get started. So there's this emotional attachment. I know we go through it, and then sometimes we're so emotionally attached because they're like one of our first transactions, right? But it's getting to that point where you just have to move on, right? And so, but I mean, that's really interesting because I bet I'm thinking through some of my clients. I bet they don't have no idea where the profit margin is better or less. They have predictions, they have ideas, but I don't know if they've ever put pen to paper. And I think firms like yours are actually doing a good job with that, and they're actually trying to help the businesses, because once you figure that out, I think there could be a little bit of element of growth. It goes back to the 80-20 rule, right? And then saving for the safe haven, in case a storm comes through.
Well, and on that, it's really beneficial to all of us. We don't want to see businesses closing, because it's not just the business owners who are going out of business. It's all the people that depend on them and their families and their it's the stone in the water. One of my dearest friends was in another state and was really, really ill, but couldn't get the treatment she needed because of the inequities in our healthcare system. And so I hired her as an employee to work remotely for me, and Butch jumped through hoops to get her insured in about 2 days. After I called him and said she desperately needs this help. He made it happen. I'm sure with all the time you put in it to get it through, you lost money on that. But when he says he does stuff out of his heart and for the good of people, he does. And so
and I appreciate that. And the loyalty is both ways, right? I did it because of you, right? And Was it really that hard? No, but there's other things to focus on, right? That makes more money, right? And so, and I couldn't even tell you how much money we even made on that, and it doesn't matter to me, right? Because somebody needed help. And you're like, Butch, I need you, and you were kind and respectful and said, what do you need from me? We give you a checklist and say, okay, we need all this stuff. You guys turn it around in an efficient manner. We're not chasing you. We're not wasting time following up. You were on the ball. People get busy too, right? So we don't expect people, hey, be on our beck and call, but like within a reasonable time frame, just get back to us, and just like that with any other business, right? So I appreciate the kind words, but absolutely, and I think a lot of businesses out there are in the same boat where they're willing to help out, and but a lot of them need to start looking at their margins and figuring out where their bread and butter is, because you can't be jack of all trades. And you can't offer everything under the kitchen sink just because you make a buck, right? And so definitely a good turning point. But obviously there's a lot of solutions that your firm could help out with these small businesses out there. If any of the businesses that are listening to this that need a little support, or even just a second opinion, hey, Virginia, can I call you? I heard you on the podcast. Like, how would they reach out to you, and how would they get in touch with you on that note?
Sure. You can visit our website at ibos.biz, or you can always give me a call, as Butch often does. Say, hey, what do you think about this? Mm-hmm. All that information is on our website, so please feel free to reach out, and we get back very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll try to put the contact information in the show notes. I do know you're on LinkedIn as well. So for those who are on LinkedIn, reach out to Virginia McGann. And I think it's MCGANN, right? This has been great. I love having you on here. We'll have you back. We'll talk about other current events that are going on with P&L statements and businesses, and keep the vibe going of successful businesses out there.
Great. Thanks a lot, Bush. I really appreciate it.